Shanti sister, how are you?
Om Shanti, brother. I'm fine. And you?
Happy Christmas, sister. Happy Christmas to everybody watching this show. Uh,
Happy Christmas.
uh, so today we are going to reveal the birth secret of Jesus Christ and also important things revealed in Bible like Jesus Christ sharing the bread, saying that it is his flesh, sharing the wine, saying that it is his blood. So, what does it actually mean? Spiritually, what does it mean? So, we will be decoding those secrets. And trust me, you wouldn't have heard this before anywhere else before this video. Okay, first, let's go into the birth secret of Jesus Christ. So, those who are Hindus will already be familiar with the story behind the birth of Jesus Christ because it has more similarities to the birth of Sri Krishna.
Yeah.
So, even when Sri Krishna was born, the king wants every newborn child to be killed. The same happens with Jesus Christ. Actually, if it is uh, killing of Sri Krishna, it makes sense because he is a prince. But Jesus Christ is in no way prince. He is born to a poor family. So there is no reason for king to kill him, except that he heard a prophecy that somebody is born to become a king. He is not going to kill him. He is just going to become a king. So he thinks that his kingdom will be robbed by Jesus Christ. That's why he wants him killed. But this particular incident reveals the fact when this actually happened. This did not happen before 2000 years. Of course, Jesus Christ was born before 2000 years. There's no doubt about it. But these incidents would not have happened back then because people were so loving back then. It is only now we see property disputes at every home. So it is at this time such things are bound to happen, not 2000 years back. So the story of Jesus Christ that we read in Bible, of Muhammad that we read in Quran, of Sri Ram we read in Ramayana, did not actually happen in the past. It's happening
It is
right now. Yeah,
prophecy now.
yeah. So it's a prophecy, actually. Those books were prophecy of what's going to happen in the end, which is now. So there, um, for three wise men, a star is guiding the way to Jesus Christ. What's the need for that anyway? So will God wants Jesus Christ to be killed? What's the need for that? Likewise, even in Mahabharat, why should God announce beforehand that Sri Krishna is going to kill him?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's impossible for God to do such things. So it did not happen as such. So just for story wise, they have included that. But in reality, people are ready to kill each other for kingdom, for property at this point of time. So whatever happens now, at this point of time, some people are chosen by God to become the king and queens of heaven. So you should know where exactly we are. Only then you will be able to understand the true meaning behind Bible, Quran, Ramayana, or Mahabharata. It's actually a 5,000 year time cycle. So it's a 5,000 year time cycle in which the first half was heaven and the next half, the same heaven becomes hell, which is nothing but the same earth where we live. Heaven is not somewhere up there and hell is not somewhere down below. The same world in the beginning was heaven, because that's how God would create this world. He wouldn't create hell, he would create heaven. But we, after 2500 years, start committing sins and make it into hell. How was it possible for us not to do any sin for the first 2500 years? Is a big question, for which God gives the answer just 100 years before the destruction of this world. He enters an old man's body and he says, in heaven, you were soul conscious. That is, you considered yourselves to be the soul that shines like a tiny star in between the eyebrows. You interacted with each other having soul consciousness in the mind. So you did not see the body, but saw uh, the invisible soul that
The
actually.
soul only drives our body, like a
Mm.
driver in a car.
Yes. And it is invisible, but still it is the soul that performs all actions, sees through the eyes, speaks through the mouth, it does everything. So, since we are constantly soul conscious, we were constantly happy, because that's the true nature of soul. So, that continued to be so for the first 2500 years. And that's why we enjoyed the richness of heaven. We lived in palaces made of golden bricks. So, that should say how rich we were. And the fruit in heaven would be million times sweeter than the fruit now. The flowers there would be thousand times more fragrant than the flowers now. And people would be so beautiful, men and women. Nonetheless, they would not be attracted or disturbed by each other's beauty, because they were soul conscious, not body conscious. But after 2500 years, slowly their soul loses its power. So they get distracted to the external beauty of the world and men and women. So that's when they become body conscious. They could no longer enjoy the blissfulness from soul, because they couldn't no longer concentrate on the soul. They get constantly distracted by the external things, thereby become addicted to sensual pleasures. And also, five vices: lust, anger, greed, attachment, and ego emerged from within us. So these five vices are present in both men and women, combinedly called 10-headed Ravan. Other than that, there were no one with 10 heads. So this Ravan is called Satan or Maya in different religions. So God, so after becoming addicted to these vices, we, under the influence of these vices, we commit more and more sins. As a consequence, we suffer more sorrow in the form of diseases, natural calamities, and many other uh, relationship problems, war between nations. So God comes in the end and reveals all this and gives us the good news that this world is going to be converted to heaven again. So the world destruction is nothing but the renewal of this old world back to the new world, heaven. So you don't have to worry, because you are not this perishable body, but an imperishable soul. So what you need to do now is to realize that your soul is sinful, filled with sinful thoughts, which expresses itself through words and actions. So you have to purify it by remembering the ever pure Almighty God, who is called Heavenly Godfather by Christians, God Shiv by Hindus, and Allah by Muslims. God is just one. He says,
Supreme soul.
uh, you shines like a tiny star in between the eyebrows, and God is also shining like a tiny star in the golden red colored light world called the soul world. From there, God enters an old man's body and gives teachings through that old man's body. He names that old man as Brahma, and whoever takes teachings directly from God through Brahma's mouth are called Brahma Kumars and Brahma Kumaris. So that's who we are. And this teaching that God gives in the end is made up into stories in Mahabharata, Ramayana, and Quran and Bible. So, because now we have to consider ourselves to be souls and remember God as a point of light in the golden red colored light world, which means remembering Him like a star in the golden sky. So, the more we remember Him, the more our soul will be filled with divine power so that we can no longer get attracted to the external attractions. So thereby we no longer, so that we can conquer lust, greed, attachment, ego. So for that, we need to become fully soul conscious. In order to teach that, God Himself comes. So God is like a tiny star, not, it's just we are comparing to the star so that you can understand He is a point of light, but He is not as big as a star. He is so tiny that nobody can see him. The tiniest thing in the world is God and soul. Both Supreme Soul and soul are equal in size, so tiny. So
The
God
energy is
descends.
energy level is very high for the Supreme Soul. The
Yeah,
energy level.
energy level, the quality, everything is supreme. That's why he is called Supreme Soul. And he comes, he enters an old man's body and gives this knowledge. Whoever takes this knowledge are called Brahma Kumars and Kumaris because we are taking God's knowledge through Brahma. So we are becoming sons and daughters of Brahma as well. So God doesn't take birth through a mother's womb like we all do. So he comes as a soul. That's why God Shiv is worshipped in the form of Shivling, which is the form of light. So this God is represented as star in Bible that guides the wise men towards Jesus Christ.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. But what really happens is God comes, gives this knowledge, and guides us to give the same knowledge to everybody else. So whoever takes this knowledge, they take birth. Although they have an adult body, it's like they are taking a new birth. So they are not going to see Jesus Christ, they are going to give birth to Jesus Christ. Somebody who was already there, after taking this knowledge, he is born new.
Oh,
So, who is our enemy? So, this world is ruled by Satan for the past 2500 years, or Ravan. So, he is our enemy. So, obviously, he wants to kill us because we are going to grab the kingdom from him. That's how we convert Ravan kingdom into Ram's kingdom. Ravan Rajya to Ram Rajya.
Ram.
So obviously Ravan doesn't want it to happen, and he's not a human. He's just these five vices. But in the religious scriptures, they have mentioned, they have given a human form and named him as Herod, the king. In Mahabharata, he is called Kans, the king. But in reality, it's not possible. See here, Sri Krishna is the eighth child of the king's own sister. He can easily prevent uh,
Hmm.
his sister from getting pregnant by putting her in jail separately from her husband. Why should he put
Yes.
both of them together? So that should say that this did not actually happen as such. So we are in the prison of Ravan.
Yes, correct.
Now God has come to rescue us. We are all Sitas. So God Shiva is represented as Ram that has come to rescue Sita's from Ravan's kingdom. The whole world is Ravan's kingdom, not only Sri Lanka. So this is what is actually happening there. So Jesus was truly there 2000 years before, but the way they have portrayed as his birth taking place did not happen physically like that. And they have shown that he was born to a Virgin Mary. That's possible in heaven, because in heaven nobody knows what lust is. So it is when husband and wife have the thought of having a baby, the wife gets pregnant. But even in heaven, only after marriage the wife gets pregnant, not before marriage.
Okay.
So, but here Mary gets pregnant even before getting married, which is not
Yeah.
possible. Moreover, the birth takes place in hell. 2000 years back, it was hell.
Mm.
So, in reality, it actually means the entrance of this pure soul called Christ into the Jesus body that we celebrate as Christmas, not the birth of Jesus. That's why it's the birth of Christ that we call as Christmas. So, Christ is a pure soul. Of course, everybody comes from God. Not only Christ comes from God, everybody comes from there. But without taking birth through mother's womb, it directly enters the Jesus body. So that's why it's called the pure birth and the pure soul. And obviously, he did not get married. So but it is Jesus who was actually worshipped as Virgin Mary.
Mm.
Otherwise, Jesus was born like everybody else. But it is the birth of Christ that's special, because it is the teaching of Christ that Christians follow, not the teachings of Jesus. Jesus knows nothing. That's what Jesus always says. I'm not saying anything. Somebody inside me is saying that. But they couldn't understand
Christianity
that.
interpret the Christians
Yeah.
era.
Yeah. And they couldn't understand that. And it is not their fault. Even we didn't understand this till we become Brahmakumaris and take this knowledge. So this is about the birth of Christ. So nobody wanted to kill Krishna because Krishna was the first prince of heaven, the first one to take birth without physical relationship, without sex. So that's why he is so famous throughout the world. And whatever the story they have created for Krishna did not happen there. Nobody wanted to kill him because it was heaven filled with deities, people with divine qualities. They did not have even the trace of lust, anger, greed, attachment, or ego. Likewise, in even in hell, when Jesus was born, people were not that bad to kill somebody. It is now that's happening. So they have shown what's happening now to have happened in Satyug during the birth of Krishna. The same thing was reflected in all religions, but nothing of that sort ever happened. Now coming to uh, Jesus, just before he gets crucified, the famous Last Supper, he says, he takes a bread and pray, then he take a piece and gives to his followers, saying that it is my flesh. And he takes a cup of wine and distributes to his followers, saying that it is my blood. Even till date, Christians are doing that. After getting baptized, they are every Sunday they go to church. They say this is the flesh of Jesus Christ. Then they eat. In
Yes.
South India, one politician makes fun of it, saying, "Are you cannibals to eat human flesh and blood?" So that didn't happen. That has a deep spiritual meaning, but people just take it as such. And every time they take that bread, they say it's the flesh of Jesus. It's the wine of, sorry, they drink wine saying it's the blood of Jesus Christ. Because they believe that Jesus washes away their sins with his pure blood. So nobody can be pure in hell. That's what in Brahmakumaris God says you cannot find a single pure soul in hell, just like you cannot find a single impure soul in heaven. The reason it is called hell because there is no single pure soul. Even Jesus himself says when somebody calls him as a pure soul, he says, how can you call me a pure one? Only our Father, Heavenly Godfather is pure. But nobody cares about what he says. They just want to consider him as God. So they search Bible where the sentences where they can put together to make him God. Nowhere in Bible he says himself as God. Not only Jesus Christ, even we all are sons of God. So he has come to establish a religion. That's it. Just like Muhammad came to establish Islam, Buddha came to establish Buddhism, he came to establish Christianity. And another thing that should be noted is when Christ enters the body of Jesus, there were absolutely no Christian souls in earth. They were all up
Correct.
there. It is only after Christ all other Christian souls slowly start taking birth. So the Christians did not become pure through the teachings of Christ because after the teaching of Christ, they are coming from there, which means they were pure when they come down. So that
Yes.
teaching has nothing to do with Christians becoming pure. They are going to church every birth because they will also have to take birth because the even in Bible and Quran it is mentioned about rebirth. They say after this there will be heaven or hell. That's what rebirth is all about. It is hell now. If you take rebirth, obviously you'll be taking birth in hell. So towards the end, after taking the God's knowledge, if you are able to become fully soul conscious, then you will be taking birth in heaven. But only in the end it is possible. Till then, be it Jesus Christ or Sri Krishna, everybody has to undergo rebirth after rebirth and come to the end. They have lost everything now. And now God is making us from beggar into the Prince of Heaven back again. That's why God
Cycle.
comes.
Hell and heaven, hell and heaven. This is cycle.
Yeah, it's a 5,000 year time cycle, just like day and night, 24-hour cycle. So when Jesus, at one point, he washes the feet of his followers and kisses it, saying that you should also be humble like this to others. Just as I love you, you love others. It doesn't mean that you have to wash their feet physically. It means you have to be loving to each other. So, likewise, he is now saying, this is my flesh, eat this bread. This is my blood, eat this wine, drink this wine. And people are saying, this is Jesus' blood. You should not do like that. If you are following Jesus Christ, you should also say, this is my blood, this is my flesh. Don't
Correct.
drink it yourself, give it to others. This is my flesh. If it is a pastor of a church, you should not say this is the flesh of Jesus. You should say this is my flesh because he is doing service. What he actually means is I'm putting my flesh and blood into spreading the knowledge of God. That actually represents us because God has come just now gives the teaching to consider ourselves to be soul and to connect our mind to the supreme soul as much as possible, so that we can no longer get attracted to the external worldly things, thereby conquer those five vices: lust, anger, greed, attachment, and ego. So we are the true uh, messengers, because only God gives his message only now. What did Jesus say? Remember God when you are young. Does it mean you should not remember God when you become an adult? Okay. And another thing, he asked us to remember God, but he did not say how God looks like. When somebody asks him the same question, he says, "Whoever sees me sees God." So it has a deep meaning. It has two meanings. First, I'm revealing God through my actions. And another meaning is, you cannot see me because it is Christ that speaks. Christ is inside Jesus. Nobody can see Christ. He's just a soul. Just like that, you cannot see God also. But unfortunately, no single Christian know either one answer to this. So they say, okay, it means Jesus is God. Hallelujah. They are saying that. It's very pathetic. So even in the middle class and in lower class, if a mother or father works very hard in bringing up their child, they will say, I have brought you with my blood. It doesn't mean they sold blood and make them study. It means their hard work. That's what they mean. They shed their blood to bring them up. In that sense, Jesus says, this is my blood.
We won't take the meaning as such in the words in the
Yeah,
Bible.
that's true. And he says, I will never drink the grape wine again till we drink in heaven. So that actually means what's happening now. We are putting our blood and flesh in spreading the knowledge of God. Even Jesus Christ, if he has taken this knowledge, he will also do the same. He will say that it is God you should worship, not me. If you worship me, you will not enter heaven. If you if you follow the teachings of my Father, only then you will be able to go to heaven. He says in the Bible, but that comes in the end. Even now, when he is saying that, people will reject him. The- because people are ready to accept Jesus as God, but they are not ready to accept God as God and give up all the body conscious vices like lust, anger, greed, attachment, ego, consuming non vegetarian food. They are not ready to give that up. They are ready to commit sin and pray to God to forgive. That's what it means. So, another important thing to note here is, although Jesus Christ prays daily, he believes in God, but the only time he prays so intensely is just before he gets crucified. He asks his followers to pray for him, because God says through Brahmakumaris that people remember God only during the time of sorrow, not during the time of happiness. That's why in heaven nobody prays to God. Doesn't mean they don't believe in God. They were so happy that they don't even think of God. So it is only in hell when they start feeling slight sorrow and pain, they start creating religions, scriptures, temples, start worshipping. Even after taking this knowledge, although we remember God as a point of light on daily basis, we will not take it seriously unless we get thrashed by Ravan or Satan. So when we fall into the claws of Ravan, and as a consequence, when we suffer, then we will remember God so intensely, because we know that it is only by being in remembrance of God that we will be able to get rid of body consciousness. Because it is only through body consciousness we experience pain, sorrow, and fear. When you become fully soul conscious, you will not have any fear, including the fear of death, because that is needed during the destruction of the world. Because God gives this teaching just 100 years before the destruction of the world. It has already been 18 years since God has come. So the world is getting destroyed right before our eyes. So it is clever to be in remembrance of God constantly before we encounter such situations, so that you don't get affected at all. If you,
Otherwise, on the judgment day, we will
yeah,
punish heavily.
we will have to cry in sorrow and distress. So there are many messages uh, in the life of Jesus as mentioned in Bible. That's not the true story of Jesus. Jesus, he came to establish a religion. He gave these teachings. That's it. So everything else belongs here now. Whatever happens here, it is the fight with Satan that we actually fights with Satan, not Jesus Christ. During his time, especially when Christ comes, it's a pure soul. Why should it fight with Satan? It is only when we become impure that we become the slaves of Satan, that we fight with him. So that's actually in the Old Testament, it is mentioned that God, through Moses, saves the slaves of Egypt. But in reality, he rescues us from the slavery of Satan, not from any human. So these are the messages that you are getting, listening for the first time ever about Jesus Christ and Bible. You can never have heard about this anywhere. So even if you don't understand, because it's not that easy to understand, because only when you were a deity in heaven, after taking several rebirths, if you come across this video, it's going to attract you. If you don't belong to heaven, obviously it's going to be confusing, or maybe you will find it irritating as well. That's not your fault. But at least share this to your brothers and sisters and friends and families. Who knows? They belong to heaven. They might be able to understand this. So that charity will be added in your account. So please share this video with your fellow brothers and sisters. Om Shanti. Happy Christmas
Yeah.
again. Om Shanti,
Happy
sister.
Christmas.
Om
Bye.
Shanti.